Welcome to the Louder Voice. This week we are going to talk about, it's a secret. It's really not a secret, but it's a secret to so many people. What we're going to talk about this week is a question that I have been asked more than any other question in all my years of traveling across the world. It's a question that I've been asked not only by young people, high school students, college students, but it's a question I've also been asked by people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. That question is this: how can I know God's will? I'll be honest with you, it really troubles me, especially when I meet older people that are in the fourth quarter of their life that say, Jay, I still don't know that I've ever really understood and discovered what God's will is for me. Now, to set the table, there's something that you've got to understand right off the bat. And that's this: God is not on some mysterious wavelength and wanting to keep His will away from you. It seems as though many people believe that God takes some kind of a delight in hiding His will from people. But the truth of it is, He wants you to know it, He wants you to discover it, and He wants you most of all to follow it. So what is the answer to how can we really know God's will? Well, quite frankly, the answer is very, very easily found. Romans 12:1-2 says this: I urge you, brothers, in view of the mercies of God, that you offer your body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may know what is the good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. You see, right there in those verses, it's literally laid out like a format. And it's a very simple procedure. First of all, God says that we have to offer our life as a living sacrifice. Most of us understand what a sacrifice is. It's where we're giving something wholeheartedly. It's something that we're giving up. Well, see, really, us giving up our life is something that we should do already, because our life doesn't even belong to us. It belongs to God. And God is saying, not only do I want you to give your life as a sacrifice back to God, but He says, He quantifies it. He says it needs to be holy and acceptable. What does holy mean? It means set apart. It means different, set apart for service. What does acceptable mean? Does it mean you have to live to some righteous standard that is almost impossible to live up to? Absolutely not. It means that you live a life that God approves of. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you don't have struggles. It doesn't mean that you don't have inadequacies. It just means that you're living a life that's trying to follow God. Well, what is the next component of that? Offer your body as a sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. Now listen to this: and do not be conformed to this world. Is your faith changing the world, or is the world changing your faith? That's a difficult question sometimes for us to answer. But God is telling us in this formula for how to know His will, that once we offer our body as a living sacrifice that's holy and acceptable to God, that we can't be like the rest of the world. We've got to be different. We should live a different life, not just Sunday mornings, but Monday through Saturday. The next component is be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's not a decision you just make and say, you know what, I'm going to think differently. I'm going to have a different perspective. I'm going to change my thought process. No, it means you say, God, give me the mind of Christ. Help me to think the way that you think. Help me to see things the way that you see them. You see, God says that once that you offer your body as a sacrifice, your body holy and acceptable, once you're no longer conformed to this world, and once your mind is transformed, that God shows you what His good and perfect will is. So God's formula for knowing His will is so simple. It's right there in black and white. First of all, it's offering your body as a sacrifice. It means that your life is being surrendered to God in a holy and acceptable way. The second component is not being conformed to this world, not being like other people, not doing what other people do. And then the third part was being transformed in your mind, in the way that you think, in the way that your perspectives, in the way that you see things. And then last but not least is that great promise that when you do those things, you will know God's perfect will for your life. It's all right there in Romans chapter 12. Difficult, but yet so simple. It's just an act of surrendering and obeying and following God. And then He makes a promise that you will know what His good, acceptable, perfect will is. That's where He wants you to be, and that's where you want to be. We'll see you next time on The Louder Voice.